a private citizen, an Orcas resident, and a small business owner, and not representing the county, although that is the position I hold. I'm here as a moderator. I also want to make it clear up front that we are here to talk about, we're not here to talk about if the customs folks will be here. We're here to talk about how we integrate as a community with what their mission is going to be here in the community going forward. So if questions are brought up about not wanting them here, we will move on to the next subject. It's how we can be better neighbors together. So with that, I would love to introduce everyone here. And then we'll go through there's a slide agenda. We'll go through some of this, do some introductions, ask them to talk about their design concepts, and then we'll have a roundtable with some of the stakeholders here, and then finally end up with public comment at the end of the presentation. So with that, and the last thing, I just want to, I know this has been a really tough issue for the community, but I want you to know that there's a lot of senior people here. And in a military comparison, we have a major general, a brigadier general, 2 bird colonels, a lieutenant colonel, and a major here, and this is a lot of people. So we may not 100% appreciate or like what they're doing here, but we need to applaud them for making the time and effort to come out to our community. So, with that, ma'am.
So I'll follow the rules and I'll stand up also. I'm kind of going out of order of what I said that I would do, but let me, I'll introduce myself, and I just wanted to make a couple opening remarks, and then I'm going to pass it on to the rest of my folks to introduce themselves. My name is Michelle James. I'm the Director for Field Operations. I'm actually located in Seattle, Washington. My area of responsibility spans from Washington State to Minnesota, so I have oversight of 67 ports of entry, one of which is very important is Friday Harbor, which is why I'm here today. And I want to tell you, I am very sincere in our approach to how we further integrate into the community. We've been here a long time, and we expect to be here a long time further. It's just our officers are part of the community. What we do helps the community. It helps our nation. We have a tough mission. We recognize that. And obviously our ability to get along in the community and do what we can to integrate means a tremendous amount to us. So today's an important day for us. This is a bit of an extension of our last meeting, which of course I wasn't here, but a lot of the managers that you see in front of you today were here at that last session. One of the key questions that was raised to me was, how come we didn't know about this meeting sooner? Well, the reason why we were having this meeting is because we had actually invited many of the business entities here because we wanted to have a bit of a discussion, dialogue, and give you feedback on certain things that we had come up with that we felt we could do to integrate better into that area that we'll be moving to. That was the reason why we're having this meeting. I can tell that there are lots of different rules that you go by here, and I respect that. Starting on time. The setup of
Not
the
one of
room.
my strengths, but
I appreciate that. To me, partnership is really big in my area. It's critically important for the success of what we do as an agency. If we thought we could do what we do alone, we could do some things, but we would not be as successful. We need the input of those that we work with every day and that we live with every day. So again, partnership is very important. We reach out to our stakeholders consistently to dialogue, to share things, to do things better, to get feedback on how we can do things better. And that's what today was about. So our invitation was to the business community. You may have, within this forum, have certain rules within your community as to what is just open to the business community, which we thought we were inviting, to what is open forum. I'm glad you're all here. I think that that's great. But if anyone is a bit concerned as to why we didn't know sooner, CBP typically will have meetings like this with the partners on a very routine basis. If your rules provide that everything is open forum, and it's open to the public. I respect that. And then that invitation was actually extended out, as I understand.
Right.
But that's certainly up to you. For us, our obligation was to reach out to you to start that dialogue. And that was a promise that I believe Mr. Alvarez had made at our last session. So that's what today is about. Hopefully we can share some things with you. We'll get more feedback from you, I am sure. I encourage that. So that is the purpose of today. I do want to thank you for being here. I know you're taking times out of your jobs and your lives to express your opinions and help us kind of move forward. And that's what we want to do here is to move forward. So I thank you, and I look forward to a good session this afternoon.
Thank you very much. And just for clarity, as we mentioned, I would like CVP to go through your presentation, and then we'll open a dialogue with the stakeholders that were here. And then with time remaining, we'll try to ask questions to everyone that we can get through for a minute at a time. We'll go through the same format. We'll start on the right and go left, or my right to go left, until we can get through it as time permits. So if that's all right with everyone, before it's going to turn it back to.
Okay. So let me go ahead and I'm going to have the rest of my folks introduce themselves. I'll start with Mr. Alvarez.
Welcome to Friday Harbor.
It's all good.
Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Alvarez. I attended the first town hall session. I'm the area port director in Lane, Washington. My area responsibility encompasses 17 ports and stations in Washington State. That's all of the land border, west and east of the Cascades, and air and sea ports to Anacortes. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Rene Ortega. I'm the Sumas Area Port Director. My area responsibility includes the Sumas Port of Entry, the Linden Port of Entry, Bellingham Airport, Anacortes, and Friday Harbor. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Terry Schultz. I was at the first meeting. I'm the Assistant Area Port Director for Passenger Operations in Blaine and Friday Harbor. I'm in the chain of command for Friday Harbor.
Good afternoon, folks. My name is Diana Sandoval. I'm the Port Director at Bellingham, and part of my responsibility is also to oversee Anacortes and Friday Harbor. So that's why I'm here.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Tom Stromberg, and I'm the Port Director here in Friday Harbor. I'm also in charge of the ferry operations, road charter, and the airport as well. Thanks for coming.
And very quickly, if we can just meet introductions for the folks here, starting with Tom, going through the business interests that involved.
Tom Kirshner, Executive Director of the San Juan Island Chamber of Commerce.
I'm Jim Hooper. I'm a member of the community. I volunteer on the board for the Economic Development Council.
I'm Jeff Walters, one of the assistant directors for field operations in Seattle, overseeing one of my responsibilities is facilities.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Millen. I'm the Public Affairs Officer for CBP for field operations for the U.S. Border Patrol and for our air and marine operations in the Pacific Northwest and the northern border to the Great Lakes.
Duncan Wilson. I'm the Town Administrator for Friday Harbor.
Greg Rattel, Commissioner for the Port of Friday Harbor.
Barbara Merritt, Communications Manager for the San Juan Islands Visitors Bureau and also for the Friday Harbor Commission.
Mike Thomas, San Juan County Manager.
Well, thank you. And so can we move on to the facility?
Once again, thank you for coming. And I'd like to thank you again, Rick, for taking this role over. Appreciate that. As mentioned before, the reason for this meeting is to discuss with all of you what we would like to do with input from stakeholders here to make this office more of a seamless entry into the tourist-friendly environment of the town and island. So some of the things that we're doing that will help this, first of all, there'll be no changes to the facade of the building. There won't be any bars on the windows or any outward signs like that to show that we're in there. So there really won't be any difference from the sidewalk view than there is right now. Okay? There's going to be limited signage, which we're working with the town to design something that will be limited in nature, although showing that, yes, we are there, but it won't be something that's going to overwhelm anyone shopping on the street and that sort of thing.
Do you have any idea of conceptually, 2x2?
At this point, I don't have an exact design because, you know, we're still in the process of coming up with that. Okay. There are, as discussed in the last meeting, if some of you were there, there's current design standards that GSA leading down to CBP is required to build into their new facilities. And one that the public has expressed concern about is bulletproof glass that will be in our lobby area. I can tell you that we are looking into alternatives to that. At this point, I can't make any commitments as far as what we would do differently concerning that, but we are looking into that, understanding that some of the people here are concerned with that. CBP, we do support the local businesses, and we'd like to continue to do that. And one of the plans that we have is to have a kiosk set up in a public area that will have brochures and things like that available for businesses and attractions from the town and the island. So any establishment that would like to participate in that will be welcome to. Okay. Furthermore, we're looking into having a monitor available that will be in one of our public areas that will display a looping tourist message, displaying something like they have on the ferry, for example. It will show attractions and things available for tourists on the island. Sir?
So this week I spoke with the San Juan Historical Museum and asked for their participation if it was acceptable from CBP to work with the interior, work with Tom and the folks designing it, to try to turn the inside like a little mini museum of historic photographs, and they agreed to that. Cool. And it's my understanding that CBP is also willing to work with them to incorporate local images for the history of Friday Harbor into that lobby space. So just sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to.
Thank you for pointing that out. We'll also have a map of the town and island for people to look at and decide where they want to go, you know, similar to like the brochures that they have with the picture of the town. Thanks, Rick, for pointing that out. One of the other issues that was brought up at the last meeting are parking concerns. And another thing I'd like to point out is all of our parking for our government vehicles as well as for personal parking has been included in the lease and will be underground. So we won't be taking up any of the very limited town parking spaces. As someone who has to drive into Kings on a regular basis to get milk and things, I'm well aware of that problem. Last point I'd like to address are concerns that people have raised about our transporting of people that say we need to detain or arrest and bring through town. There's been concerns raised about the public seeing that and that being out in public view. Well, we have protocols in place that we will utilize to minimize any public displays of that sort of necessary duty that we carry out every, It doesn't happen very often here because with the traveling public that we have the pleasure to work with here. It's not a common occurrence, but should that happen, we do have procedures in place to minimize that.
Would you like to explain those procedures briefly?
I'm not able to go into that in detail. Anybody else like to address that? But we do have, it is something that we
Think about.
needs to consider.
If we can write down your questions as they come up, and let's hold until after we get through the business forum part and then address those questions. If that's possible.
My remarks are completed, so.
Can I interject one more thing? Our community is going to be going through in the long-term reservation program with Washington State Ferries, and one of the things I would ask too is that you work with the State Ferries Department for there's going to be applications which have monitors that will show how the ferries are doing on time and available car slips in each thing, and I think it fits in with part of your mission with that. If this point could be a information kiosk as well for the status of the ferries and available cars, that might be an interesting dialogue. So if you could consider that, that would be appreciated.
Yes, sir, I forgot to mention it. Thank you.
So if I could just speak in general terms about, detention, and some of the protocols vary from facility to facility because of the layout of the facility, the design. But in general, if we have somebody in custody, we make every effort. We've got to secure them. That will include, for security reasons, handcuffs. We don't walk people in public view. We don't detain people in public view, meaning that, copy the seats or whatever. And some facilities in my area are designed so that if we have someone in custody, they never come in public view. We enter to a secure side of the facility and we exit to a secure side of the facility, so that we don't have members of the traveling public that we're providing a service to. We don't have those concerns and safety issues, because sometimes when you detain a person, they can be a violent person, and now you're commingling them with public. At the proposed, or at this new facility, the new office, we got to work with the limitations there. So, someone asked me at the conclusion of the other town hall session, the first town hall session, their words, I'm concerned that somebody's going to be doing the perp walk down the sidewalk. Well, no, that's not going to happen. And so then for our own security reasons, exactly what route, we take from the building to the secure vehicle, if we have to transport somebody that we arrested off of the island. We wouldn't get into that specific. But in general terms, that's what we mean when we say that's what our protocols include. We try to segregate somebody, as much for safety reasons as anything else, from the public.
So I just want to add on to the point that you brought up, Rick, about the Historical Society. I don't know if we have anyone representing the Historical Society here today, but I do want to say thank you. In many of the articles that have come out about this move, the one that I specifically took note of was the historian, who talked about the history of when Customs first arrived in 1854, I think it was. And that's what spurred some of the thought process on our end also. So I guess we're thinking down the same road. To be able to integrate, some of that history of customs and immigration and what we brought to the community at that point and where we want to be able to take it, and some of that importance. If we can possibly, bring in some of that history and showcase that in our facility, that would certainly be our honor. We'd like to be able to, draw it into Friday Harbor specifically, and I think that that's an outstanding offer. We appreciate that. And I think that the other offer that you talked about was maybe some sort of signage of some sort on the awning, so we can talk through some of those requirements. Some of these things, Jeff will be one of our subject matter experts to kind of filter through things that are acceptable on our storefront and things that are that we can that we have to sort of steer away from. But again, we recognize we hear what you're saying. We want to minimize this big, bold blast of DHS being right there in the forefront of your streets. We want to be tasteful, but we also want to be able to allow people to recognize that we are there because we do have a role in what we do.
And the signage that she's referring to is, I was thinking that it might be interesting to have a turn-of-the-century, handcrafted, locally wood carving of Custom House. Not to their spec, not to anything that had to do with them, but something that showed what a signage like this might look when Customs first arrived here in the town. So that just a clarification.
So on my part, we discussed, last time that we were here, we discussed the boating community, what steps we were going to take to increase outreach to everybody. So one of the things we're definitely doing this season is, and we've already started with some of the yacht clubs, and we're going to continue to talk to the boating community and offer a lot more like I-6-8s, encourage the use of Nexus, and encourage them to make it easier coming into the island. Behind the scenes, I don't know if you realize, you do get to see a lot of the officers that we have here, we have about 7 officers here. But then also behind the scenes, we do the boat phones and talk to a lot of the boating community, get them processed. It's like a 5-minute process, and then they're here and they're able to shop and visit the community a lot quicker. So we're encouraging that a lot more on our side of it. So we're going to have a lot more media outreach to speak to the boaters, not only here, but as well as in Canada, to make sure that everybody's on the same page, and then hopefully have an influx of tourism for Friday Harbor and the other surrounding communities, because I know for Orcas Island also, they have to rely on the boat phones and stuff since there isn't a presence there. So that's part of the stuff that we're trying to do. If you have any questions and concerns on that, please feel free to contact us and see, maybe let us know what you would want to see a little bit more of as far as the media outreach, and we can integrate some of that to help encourage tourism and visitors and all that for the community.
Could you please tell us how we can contact you at this contact that you're offering?
Yes, we do have the boat phones. When you call the boat phones, they have the brochures there at the Friday Harbor. We don't have them here locally, and I don't have a card, unfortunately, but if you want, I'll give you the number for our office. Sorry?
She's talking about making input.
Okay. You can call everything that we do get through Tom there at Friday Harbor. It does get relayed up to us and up to the Seattle field office, and we'll get that phone number put up.
Great, thank you.
Okay, no problem.
Do you have an email address too, by chance?
I do.
Okay. Thank you. And is that a comma or a period between Thomas and Stromberg? Just want to make sure.
I'm sorry, that's the period.
Yeah, that's
Okay.
period.
There you go.
Any other, I was going to say, any other questions relative to what Diana had presented? So I had a couple more comments that I was going to add. Did you want to add some more?
I think we've talked about uniforms. Was that another concern?
It is, yes.
Okay, all right. So I think some of the questions with the uniforms and how we present ourselves. So there isn't going to be a change to what you see our officers wearing. And I mean, we're still going to be the same presence and the same basic uniform that, there won't be the big vest or that kind of thing that you'll be seeing. And especially at the office level, it'll be just the same basic uniform that you guys see today.
But the officers do wear the outer carry at times.
At times by the boats, right.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So what we mean by an outer carry is body armor. And the folks that you have here, of course, we don't have any of that on today. I'm hoping we don't need that today.
I think you're the ones that are looking at all your guns.
Absolutely. That's fabulous. But the officers very routinely wear body armor. It's part of our uniform. And when we are out there, we can't assume that just because everyone who is coming to Friday Harbor is here to vacation or do what they always say that they're going to do. We always have to be cautious about what we do, but we have to do it professionally. And part of that is the uniform. We not only have to look professional, we have to act professional. We do wear body armor. We are armed. It is a requirement for those that work at Friday Harbor. There's a variety of uniforms that we do wear. This is our Class 2 that we wear in the wintertime. You may see us with a turtleneck in a Class 2. You may see us with a tie in a Class 2. More of a rough-duty uniform that we would wear, we could be in BDUs. But it's going to... So the BDUs are more of a rough-duty uniform. This is more of a dress uniform compared to the, you may see someone more so in boots. I guess no one has.
It's probably what they normally see the officers in here.
Right. But it's going to be the dark blues. We're all in one color. That's the dark blue. I don't know if your officers ever wear shorts in the summer. It is part of the uniform. They may be in shorts, but even if they're in shorts, they still may be in body armor, and they're going to have their weapon on. But that's the requirement of the job, and that's whether you're on Friday Harbor, you're in Seattle at the seaport, or you're at the airport. And that's a very standard practice, and we haven't deviated from that within our agency. But again, it's how do you present yourself and how do you act? I get it. This is Friday Harbor, and I'm kind of trying to figure out how do I get out here on a permanent basis. This is a really nice place. And I'll tell you, in all sincerity, I'm from Washington State, so I have a vested interest in this area. I was born and raised here, and I've been fortunate enough to be able to come back for a few years to work here again. And it's very important that the officers here are professional in how we approach people. And we have to acclimate to the environment that we are working in. To have that island-friendly response to people and to tourists. I did read in one of the articles that we were going to have someone who is going to be dedicated, I don't know how it was phrased, to answering questions, tourist questions in our office. I know I didn't get that quite right. I'm not bringing anyone on board to specifically as a receptionist or as their sole job, but the officers, if someone is coming into the office and they're lost or they need assistance, the officers will give them that assistance. They'll point them in the right direction. And I think that's and hopefully that's the type of response they've always given in the past. If you have issues with any of the, an attitude with an officer or how they're acting, if you perceive it as an unprofessional manner, please give Mr. Stromberg a call. Call him personally and have that discussion with him, because we want to be able to rectify those things.
Do you want to take questions from the broad audience or go through the format?
I am open for anything.
Hold on a second. So of the folks in the business community that are here, do you have a lot of questions? Or should we open it to the forum?
I just have a brief comment about visitor information.
So if you guys are okay, let's start with Scott, maybe. and then move around. It's not really.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
All right. So if that's all right with everyone, and we'll try to get to all your questions. So Tom.
Well, this island is blessed to have a visitor information center that's open 7 days a week. We close 2 days a year, Christmas and New Year's, that's it. So I would really appreciate it if Customs does not become the visitor information center for the island. That you refer people up to a fully staffed facility 3 doors up the street. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Good. You guys are okay?
We're good with that.
Jen?
I do have comments as an individual. I'm a member of the Economic Development Council, and my comments are the comments of me as an island resident, as an individual. I did attend the previous meeting. I did hear many of the concerns that were raised. For my part, I'm very pleased that you are willing to show the response that you're showing now. The feedback that I'm getting through what you're saying, I view as very positive. I like some of the little ideas that you're talking about, the ideas of a customs house sign. Now, Rick Hughes said that, but that works for me. I also liked the historical customs article that appeared in our local journal, and the idea of leveraging on that and the historical significance of customs in Friday Harbor really works for me. As a person who I hope thinks good economic development thoughts, I believe that the presence of customs and the fact that Friday Harbor is a port of entry is a significant contributor to Friday Harbor's economic prosperity. And I'm very pleased that Customs has chosen to be here. I'm also pleased at some of the steps that you're communicating that you intend to take to support that island-friendly spirit idea.
I guess only just a comment, and that we presented a letter to you folks that came from the council. It was a unanimous decision to send out that letter.
You speak up, I'm sorry.
Sure. The council sent you a letter. It was unanimously signed by the council members. But the message being is we've had a long-standing relationship, and you've been here a long time, and we've never had problems. We don't anticipate them in the future. And that any activities that you can undertake, and expenses you can make to make the entry of your facility, whether it's through signage, through personnel, through design, through services, as friendly and as inviting to the public as you can be while still producing your duties. And again, there's segregation between governmental entities here, and you've got your governmental entity, we've got ours. But the message that we had and the message that we wanted to pass along is we enjoy being an international port of call. We think it's important to the economic vitality of Friday Harbor that we remain a port of call, and that your job here, we understand it, we know it, and expect it to continue. But we have heard from a town standpoint very clearly from the citizens that there's an expectation level that falls really back on my shoulders and the rest of my staff, is that we look for and maintain and will be communicating with you on a regular basis where problems do arise. We would expect that if something comes up, as my basketball coach used to say, we'll be on you like stink on garbage. And so we really do want to maintain that relationship. I don't want there to be any question that we enjoy the relationship that we've had all these years, but we also have an expectation level that we have to present ourselves as a town to the public in a certain way, and we expect that you guys can do the same thing without interfering with the duties you have to undertake. So with that being, welcome and to the downtown area, and we'll be watching.
I have no doubt.
One of the things that came up in terms of the uniforms, there were four, at the first meeting, there was 4 uniforms that the officers could choose from, and one of them was, that probably causes the most concern, is the BDU, which stands for Battle Dress Uniform, obviously. We don't mind a law enforcement look. We understand your duties, we understand that you need to carry your firearms and sometimes wear body armor. It's the military look that I think that caused the most concern for some people. And I just wanted to say that if there's some way to avoid that, and maybe you choose from the other 3 instead of all 4 of them like that for your officers, it would probably go a long ways towards making people feel more comfortable. As for island friendly, I would recommend a Hawaiian shirt and shorts.
I would suggest that too, but I think I'm going to lose on that one.
Try, they come in Kevlar.
Yeah. We'll take it.
Thanks.
2 things. Diana mentioned doing outreach to the boating community.
Yes.
I would also encourage you to make sure those press releases go to our local media outlets, to the port, to the Visitors Bureau, and the Chamber, so that we can help you get your message out there. The second thing is we want to encourage visitors to the islands, and there's a gentleman who is starting to run planes from Victoria or from Sydney to Friday Harbor, but is having to stop in Bellingham to clear customs. And this time of year, there's really no commercial carrier. The ferries aren't running to get people from Canada to the U.S. So we'd like to see it made easier for folks to get from Canada directly to Friday Harbor. And with the expansion of the office, hopefully you'll get some personnel who will make that easier. And just the third thing is that you are the first people, very often when visitors come here, you're the first people that they meet. So I would just encourage you to be really great ambassadors for not only the U.S., but for the islands.
And real quick, I want to touch a little bit on what you said, and I fully agree with that. I would like to see expanded access and to Friday Harbor, to the airport, both commercial and private entry here. And I also would like to see, my counterpart and I went to Main Island for a meeting, and it took us 12 hours to get there, and it would have been a 40-minute boat ride. But that boat ride would have cost us $1,200 because of entry requirements with the port, with Canada and the U.S. And I'd like to see an ability to look forward for Gulf Island to San Juan County transportation through commercial passenger-only ferries, if there's a way we could. I'm not sure if that's a legislative thing or something that you guys could help us with, but we're very kindred spirits across the border, and it's almost impossible for us to reach them.
Yeah. What's your time frame for finishing the improvements to the new space?
Well, currently we're in the design standards right now, and we hope to be in the new space sometime this summer, by the end of the summer.
Okay. And I would echo, because it's Rick, not Chairman Rick. You're here as a prize visit, but really we are the doormat, or the welcome mat rather, to. I'm the doormat. But we really are the welcome mat to the international community. So you look at the folks that come and visit this state, whether it's from the rest of the United States or internationally, we're one of the top 3 destinations for Washington State. So I echo what others have said previously about making sure that the welcome mat is fresh and there for people that come and visit. So thank you.
Well, I think it's good timing. We are in the design standards, and we welcome your feedback and whatever we can do to incorporate some of that into our lobby area, we will take full advantage of that.
And hopefully in this process, as you're going through the design development phase, that as much information about the look and feel of the interior that you can share without having a safety concern that you provide to the media and the local jurisdictions would be quite helpful. So with that, I'm going to start with the public, and if you could please announce your name, and then try to stick it to a minute. The question would be great. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Cloud Oates, and I'm a resident here for the last, almost 15 years now. I have 2 questions. One is on facilities, and one of my main concerns is surveillance of that area and surveillance of town. As a private citizen, I don't want to be recorded necessarily walking down the sidewalk, I feel invaded for privacy on that issue. I have a question, maybe you can answer it, but is the surveillance, I assume there's going to be surveillance on the building, will it be directed back at the building, or will anything be directed to record common citizens walking down the sidewalk and taking part in their everyday lives?
Did you have a second question?
And the second question is cell phone. Are you going to improve the cell phone quality on the island? Because I think it's a borderline customs issue. We don't get cell coverage all over the island.
I don't think you can answer the second one, correct?
I wish I could, but that one I
Put it in your budget.
So I'm not sure who's going to answer, but I think the question is surveillance that's involving the building. It's my understanding that there will be no outside surveillance, that anything would be in secure areas, but if you could confirm that, I'm not sure if I'm accurate on that.
Yeah, and I think that might have been mentioned at the last session. We do have cameras in the buildings, which is very standard. But we don't have cameras going up and down the streets.
So we're not going to be recording our daily lives.
Okay, so,
and I'll work on the cell phone, but I don't think I can deliver on that one.
Scott, do you have any questions?
You got it, move. Thanks, sir.
Yes, sir.
Jack Corey, the Island Guardian. I'm the one that brought up the uniforms at the last meeting, and I got mixed messages now when it was brought up again by Greg. I heard you say that you would be wearing the blues, and if you had to go out on the docks, you would be changing the uniform because of the body armor requirement. Is that correct?
No, so,
Okay, could we clarify that? Because the issue is the jumpsuits with combat boots. And I just want to make a statement, which is, as you well know, police departments all over this country, including here in Friday Harbor, the officers wear armor, but they wear it under their dress uniforms. And if you could do that, I think that would be important. And on a personal note, I was in a couple elite units in the Army, and I confess that when you wear those uniforms, you can get a swagger. They can affect you, particularly when you're young. And that's not a good thing. And that's something we do need to avoid, and I have seen that in this town. And it's not helpful. So if there's any way, and I understand you have regulations, and you're not going to be able to change those regulations, but if within the regulations there are options to allow you to bring it down a level, I think that would really be helpful. Thank you very much.
I think those are good points that are made, and Mr. Stromberg, here's your concerns. There are options of us being able to wear body armor, and so we'll certainly take those options into consideration and pass that on to the officers too. But to clarify, the uniform itself doesn't necessarily change. You may put the body armor on or take it off, but the uniform essentially stays the same. I thought I was hearing you wanting some clarification from me on that.
Well, I did, because typically you said we'll continue to see what we've seen today.
Right.
And what we see today here is not what we see on the streets and with the officers. Okay? That's the difference. We're seeing someone that looks like he's getting ready to go on a mission and break down doors. He's wearing combat boots, he's wearing a jumpsuit, and he's got a bit of a swing.
Okay, fair enough. And just seeing one of the officers in the port office before coming over here, he did have his body armor on. So I am aware that they do wear that. I think my point is, depending on what you're doing, you don't always have to wear the body armor. I'm in the office on a day-to-day basis. I don't wear body armor. You may see the port director on a day-to-day basis. He may not have the body armor. He may have it on because he may be actually out doing frontline work. There are situations where they're going to wear it and where they're not. But I even have to say, even if the officer is not clearing a boat or not clearing an aircraft or clearing the ferry, that is a law enforcement officer. And it is part of their uniform, because there are certain risks that an officer does take. Even when someone sees us out on the street, if you have a bad guy, that bad guy isn't going to care that you are just working the ferries and you had the opportunity to have your body armor on or off. If there's a concern that if there are individuals who could be a threat to us, and that body armor will protect that officer.
I'm sorry, I didn't communicate well. It's not the body armor. That's fine with the body armor. It's the battle dress and the combat boots. That's the issue.
Just to provide a comment on that. And so 4 classes of uniforms are available to all of the uniform staff. Depending on their work environment, they do get to choose which uniform, if it's authorized, they can wear in the environment. And you see officers see these things differently. Some of them don't like the BDUs just because. Some of them feel that they're a lot more comfortable to work in and they hold up better when they're in a rough duty environment. One of the other concerns that some of the other concerns officers have are with the BDU. There is a safety aspect to it that is maybe not such a big deal if we're working in Blaine on the hardtop and we're not around water. But of the 4 classes of uniforms, the BDU is the one that, the only one I can get out of and shed this belt quickly if I fall into the water, I'm pushed in, or I'm struggling. It's a much easier release. If there weren't any of the other 3 classes, there weren't something like this, that's got all kinds of different straps you got to undo, and it becomes a safety issue for them. They're also smaller in numbers, meaning that I may not have a buddy there to help me in that situation. It doesn't happen often here, and I don't recall the year, a couple of years ago. I should have looked this one up. But I know that even in Friday Harbor, we have that quick call. I get a call to Blaine, or my command center does. Law enforcement chase, law enforcement call, high-risk person, armed. We think he's got somebody, he's in a boat, he's headed towards Friday Harbor. I can't send anybody here to back up. They won't get here in time. The call comes to Friday Harbor, and the officer that's on the dock that day, the 2 of them that are working, they got a plan for that. What do we do? In that case, the guy did make it right up to Friday Harbor. We found that he had already killed his girlfriend that he had with him, and then he killed himself, right? And so at a port of entry, like Blaine or Linden or Sumas, where we would get that call, and we would, they may not be wearing their body armor, but we issue that armor up procedure, they can go get it, they can throw it on, we got other backup. The officers here don't have the benefit of any of that. And so, and you know, that's just something that we'd like for everybody to keep in mind. How you carry yourself. If you're dressed like that, we get that point. Like you can walk like you're John Wayne or not. And so that's something that Mr. Stromberg can address.
Can I make a suggestion too? Is it possible to just, maybe at the board office, just have an example of what each of the different uniform sets look like? If someone, I think it's public information, just to show if someone has a curiosity what it would look like, just to have it available for someone to consider.
And, yeah.
I mean, that might be at least stuff.
And not wanting imposters. I mean, there are like weirdos who are randomly mentally ill people, and they maybe not here all the time.
And when we say the 4 classes of uniforms, you've got this. If I've got a tie on, or as I'm wearing it, it's class 2. If I throw a ceremonial Ike jacket on it, same uniform. If I throw an Ike jacket on and I've got the smoky cover on, that's class 1. The class 3 is between this and a BDU. It's a rougher duty outer garment, but still with that uniform, I've got to wear this setup of equipment. And then of course you got the BDU, and like the one thing that really gets people on the BDU is that you blouse the boots. You know, and that's what looks military about that. We tell people not to, and somebody at the last meeting say, well, I feel intimidated talking to you because you're wearing that. It doesn't mean anything to anybody in this room. If we were in the military, that would mean something. But if I've got any of the other officers from Friday Harbor here today, in dealing with the public, they got no more or less authority than I do. Right? Their authority comes from their badge and the fact that they're an officer. And so, you know, we try to impart that as well. You know, this, in this setting, this is not military. I understand, though, it's perception.
Well, you came here wanting to integrate into the community. We told you how we feel about the uniforms.
I appreciate that. And I certainly, I hope I don't come across as abrasive. I'm not trying to argue the point. I'm just trying to explain.
Great. Sir, do you have any questions?
Yeah. I'm Tom Muncy with Public Access TV. 2 years ago, former Seattle Police Chief Norm Stamper gave a lecture to us here, and the topic of his lecture was the increased militarization of law enforcement in the country. And I would wonder, do you see that happening, and how do you feel about it? And by the way, that lecture by Stamper is on Public Access tonight at 6:30.
So I don't see us changing. The numbers that we have, the number of officers that we have here, are all the officers that we have planned to exist on Friday Harbor. I am not planning on increasing my personnel at this time. If workload changes, that may be different. As summer, the summer workload increases, we do bring more officers on board, but we've done that every year. We've had to actually bring officers from the Blaine area to this area to process the number of passengers that you actually, and boaters and aircraft coming in, that you have. We've done that for years. So everything is really status quo. The only difference that we have here is that we are moving our location. So everything else is the same. We are not changing the uniforms that we have in existence today. We haven't changed any of our policies or our approaches to how we do our job. All of that is really the same as we have been doing that over the past few years, or the past numerous years. So there are no plans to bring more officers out here to change our approach. You know, you will see, because I do make sure we are very transparent, there's no confusion. There are occasions where you're going to see other uniforms that are here, but you've seen them in the past. You've seen Border Patrol or Office of Air and Marine come out, and they are working certain operations with us. You'll continue to see them. But our plan for our office is to move the existing 7 personnel from one location to another. I am not planning, and I would know because I would approve that. I'm not planning on increasing numbers or modifying the operation here.
Real quick, how many folks in the audience have a question? If I can see it. Okay. Sharon, did you have a question?
No, thank you.
So I'm going to start on here. Let's try to keep the question to a minute, and we'll just go back and forth like we did last time. So yes, sir?
My name's Tim, and what I'm going to say is a little bit difficult for me to talk about. When I see your dress uniforms not starting at 0, I see Joseph Giuliano. He's the brand who first came out here. It's both about the uniform and it's about what happened with this man. I'd like you to explain his story to us, so tell us, update on what happened to him, where he was in your hierarchy, where he is now, and the relationship with our own Sheriff's Department. Because as you know, when he was first discovered to be raping that little girl, he was treated with kid gloves. The Sheriff's Department in Whatcom went to his house, had a chat with him, let him go, and he raped her again that night. Could you explain who he is, what he did, and separate yourselves from him? Because that's the brand, that was my experience with your uniform, was sitting across that man who was acting as rational as you are today.
You want to respond to that really quickly? Or,
I'll
I mean, it's not, this is way out of the scope of what this meeting's supposed to be, but.
No, it's not.
So he was the deputy chief for Border Patrol in the Blaine sector. Border Patrol is one of the 3 operational offices within Customs and Border Protection. We have 3 operational offices. Office of Field Operations, which are the folks in blue, at the ports of entry. What we do here today. Border Patrol is the agents in green that are manned in between the ports of entry, and then you have Air and Marine, the folks that you may see come in on boats or on the Blackhawks in tan. So we make up the 3 operational offices. They do not have a resident office here. It is OFO, Office of Field Operations, who are here. I can't specifically talk to you because I don't have the knowledge as to how he was treated or why he was treated that way. And I can't even tell you today where he is, whether he is still incarcerated or where he might be. I just don't have that knowledge. Whenever something like that happens, it gives the agency a black eye. I would hate to see anyone within law enforcement go down that path. I'd hate to see anyone even outside of law enforcement. Unfortunately, it casts a shadow on what we do. And I couldn't give any excuses for him, nor will I ever try. I'm sorry. Is there a comment?
It's a conversation outside in the hall.
Oh, okay. So that's about all I could say about that man.
Could you address the relationship with the sheriff and the impunity situation?
No, I have no knowledge. I honestly have no knowledge about
What are the relationships here?
Pardon me?
What are the relationships here with local law enforcement?
You can chime in.
Vis-a-vis myself and the officers, we are subject to the same laws that you are. As far as our relationship with the sheriff's department here, if there's a need for us to request their assistance, say we have to meet a boat late at night, one officer out there, occasionally we might ask a deputy if they're available to assist us. But as far as being, like you're saying, where this Galliano person received special treatment from the sheriff's department up there, that absolutely does not happen.
Who's in charge when you're together with the sheriff?
Nobody's in charge.
But you have authority,
We have different
right?
scopes of authority.
It would depend on what the situation would be. If we were in a situation where we have arrest authority, where we could arrest someone, it depends on what the incident actually is as to who has the overall authority. We have federal arrest authority. If we identified someone with a state warrant, we would detain the person and we would turn them over to the sheriff's department, and they would actually arrest and take that person into custody. So it depends on the situation, but we do work hand in hand with local law enforcement. We should expect and we shouldn't receive any preferential treatment in things that we're doing outside the scope of our duties on a day-to-day basis. But we do have to work hand in hand with local law enforcement. But we are subject, as you said, to the laws that everyone else is subject to.
Ma'am, is there a question?
Yes. You stated that there were protocols to minimize people you've arrested in public view. My understanding is that building only has one entrance, and it's the one on the corner. How do you anticipate being able to bring somebody in without having them in public view?
Well, there is more than one entrance, first of all.
There is?
There is. There's an entrance from the parking ramp itself. Underground. So so there are other options to getting into our area other than just that busy corner.
Where do you think the majority when possible, you will attempt to process underneath the building, correct?
Yes. We will do in any way possible. We will minimize any public exposure to that sort of thing, should the need arise.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for holding the meeting. I know that we're running out of time here. And I appreciate your desire to have a meeting that talks about integrating into our community and how to do that successfully. And, the successful way, the most successful way is, going through with the plan that was initially in place, which was to continue the relationship with the port, which historically, if you want to talk about historically, that's where the relationship has always been with our port. I just wanted to ask you guys if anybody's actually seen the drawings of the proposal that the port made to CBP for the site at the turnaround next to the port building. I just wanted to know if anybody has seen it up there. If you've seen
I
the
prefaced at the
drawings.
beginning of the meeting that we're going to assume that this is happening in this location.
I understand that. Excuse me, please don't misunderstand. Well, all I'm saying is I see that you guys want to come and say that you want to integrate in our community, and you want to know how to do that successfully, and you recognize that it's a little bit different here. And I'm just saying that it doesn't seem consistent with jumping ship from the relationship with our port in a building site and proposal that was beautiful, that cost our port a lot of money, that would have been the way to keep a long-standing relationship and integrate more successfully. Instead, now we have a mess to clean up. And so moving from there, I'm glad that you guys are going to take certain concerns into consideration. I think we're all concerned about it. I think no matter how much signage you have, once somebody is looking at the corner to figure out what buildings are available, what businesses are available, they're going to see the size. It's monumental. It's quite out of place from where it was. I, again, appreciate the consideration for what you're going to do, making it like a visitor center. I'm not really worried about seeing prisoners taken. I would rather see them, personally. But even with an underground access, I don't see that it's possible to just make them appear from the port. And it's very congested, and I know you guys have seen how congested it gets with no left-hand turns at the corner coming off the ferry, and I just don't see that it's going to be possible, and that's probably not the main area where we should focus. But to say it's not an expansion, that nothing's going to change, I just saw this officer here, what I heard from you, Miss, was that you guys were actually going to be taking on different things. Like there was new stuff in the making, and you were going to be taking on, as a port of entry, kind of broadening the horizon. We're now talking about having one like what you said at the port. So we will be expanding. I mean, we are expanding considerably just in the amount of space and the money for rent. But I thought what I heard from what you said.
We need to interrupt, because we have a lot of questions. and not a
There
lot
were
of time,
several
so-
different jobs that you said were going to be kind of glommed into this new interaction, but what I heard you just say was that that wasn't happening, that there
No,
wasn't
we're
going to
not
be change.
expanding our office or anything, just like James said, we're going to keep the same number of officers and everything there. The only thing that we're doing is telephonically, we're going to be clearing a lot more vessels and helping the community and helping the boaters be able to call in and just come in. So they wouldn't actually even see an officer down at the dock. They would call on the phone, and then, but that's done out of Bellingham. And that was part of the expansion that I was speaking of. And offering just these boater programs and these trusted traveler programs to help bring in more tourists.
Okay. And so we're clear, I'm not saying in least, because it's very obvious, we are expanding the size of the office. And so, yes, that is an expansion. We aren't increasing the number of officers. We're moving from a very, very small office that we have difficulty, even with a small number of officers, to maneuver through, into a larger footprint. And yes, that is an expansion, but that's not the expansion that I was referring to with the gentleman's question.
Okay, well, could you just explain how integrating with the community is different now rather than doing it the way through the port, which was with the initial plan? Can you just tell me why, like you want to integrate, but you didn't do it in a way that was really integration?
And that's, after that, I'm going to cut you off for the next person. We have a short period of time to address a lot of folks' questions.
And I don't know how much this was discussed before, but when CBP works on identifying space, we go through GSA. And we provide GSA with all of our specifications that we require based upon our operation, number of officers. And based upon that, they will go out and they will identify what the appropriate space is. They will take the bids. They'll look at how do those bids compare with the requirements that CBP has. Then they'll look at the cost per square foot. So there is a process that is in place, and I understand people do not agree with the outcome of that process. But we have gone through that process, and if the Port Authority had bid into that process, and if they were not selected within that process, because that's the way we would have to operate within that selection of that piece of property. And I get it, you don't agree with that.
No, our community doesn't agree with it.
And the community, okay, so we're here today that we have identified the space that we're moving into. So from here forward, what I can offer you is where do we go from here? Knowing that we're not all going to agree with this. But I'm not going to step back in time to look again at the space that the Port Authority had offered, that for reasons, if they did bid into it, they should have received some sort of feedback from GSA as to why not.
And we didn't.
We didn't. Okay, well, and we can bring that back to GSA then.
And we're not privy to who bids and
We
how
are
much.
not.
That's all held by.
And that's why I keep saying if.
After we're done here, you and I should talk, and I can tell you, so we don't waste everybody else's
Okay.
time.
So the gentleman, do you have a question, sir? I'm sorry, your name, right? Yes, sir. Okay, Lovell?
Yes, Lovell Pratt. And just to follow up on this discussion that we're having right now in terms of the move from the previous site to the new one being such a large facility, it's great to hear your assurances that the number of personnel will not change with the Customs and Border Protection personnel. If there's some way that Homeland Security can inform the community that there are no plans to expand their personnel in that new facility, I think that would help address some of the concerns. Nature abhors a vacuum. That's a really big space. I appreciate that the space that you've been occupying at the port has been problematic and too small for the number of personnel you currently have. But this is a very huge space you're moving into. It seems far bigger than what would be adequate for the number of personnel you have. And so a concern is that there will be expanded operations of other Homeland Security personnel in Friday Harbor. If that's not the case, and if there can be assurances provided the community that that won't happen, I think that would be helpful.
So like I just said, we have no plans of expanding the number of CBP.
I understand.
And if the workload were to increase, then we have to keep looking at what are the needs here. You see additional, you may not, but we bring in additional officers in the summertime. That's what you've seen in the past, the basic numbers. At this point, we have no plans of bringing in more DHS components, I should say CBP. I don't know about DHS. We don't have any plans to bring in more. If that were to be the case, your point is well taken. To be able to voice that to the community that, you know, you're going to see, this is an example, I'm not saying this is what you're going to see. You know, if you were to see additional Border Patrol, or if you were to see Air and Marine who are actually stationed here on a permanent basis, yes, it should be messaged to you that this is what you're going to see in the future. But I have no knowledge of that coming to Friday Harbor at this point.
And maybe you misunderstood what I was trying to say, because I realize that you can't speak for the Department of Homeland Security and say that no other personnel from other departments are going to be stationed here. But if there is somebody who could reassure the community that that's the case, that no other Homeland Security personnel will be stationed in the new facility that CBP is moving into, I think that would help assure.
Well, I can tell you, the facility is going to be an Office of Field Operations facility, and there are no plans for anyone moving in other than Office of Field Operations at this point. It is our space, and there is no other entity that's moving in there.
Yes, sir.
I'm not sure what else you would be looking for.
I was asking for a promise to that effect. Could you ask DHS to make that promise for us? Could you ask them?
I think she's saying that this is it's a different, those are different entities.
They
and
are,
for
but
her
you-
operation, there's not going to be someone else in there. Is that
You
correct?
did ask them, we work together a lot.
Well, I get, you know, it would be, yeah, we do, we work on the better, but I have no knowledge, and someone would end up coming to my office and saying, you know, we have this request for this entity to move in here. I have no request coming to me, and I think federal-wise, is there only just one other federal agency that's out here on the island?
There's just the National Park.
Right.
Coast Guard?
Well, they may remember, but they're not actually stationed here. So I would say that if that is a concern for you, that the community maybe write to the Department of Homeland Security. If you want something in writing back, when I'm telling you that I have no one else other than officers from Office of Field Operations in that office, I'm telling you that, but that's not going to satisfy you. So I don't know what else that I could do, other than you writing to an even higher level and wanting that assurance, is what I'm trying to say.
Yes, sir.
I'm Bruce Conway, I'm a local business owner. I would like to pick up where Level left off. And I think one of the first let me say, I really appreciate you coming here. I can look into each one of your eyes and see that you're decent people, and that you're, of course, welcome in this community. I think, and as far as the Border Patrol, it's always been a great relationship. You're doing a great job, we appreciate that. I think most of the community who thinks about this is very concerned about the militarization, the mission creep. In the first meeting, which you did not attend, it was stated that this new facility would be open to any related government agency who had operations in the vicinity who was coming through because of some kind of sharing protocols we have. We are very concerned that Homeland Security and the TSA will increase their presence here. TSA, as you know, is universally despised and feared in this country. Just the possibility of having more of these personnel in the area is extremely frightening to us. So I just wanted to say that, and I'm not asking a question, I'm stating my point of view. So thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Can I comment on that? So having been at the first meeting, and I did get questions, field questions regarding mission creep or other DHS entities coming that you know of. Is this, in particular, someone asked, is your large building going to be used as a task force building because the individual was prior law enforcement and said that facilities like that are task force facilities? I answered that question, and it did not state it was a shared facility. It said it's not going to be a task force. Port of entry personnel are the only people that are going to be working in the facility, and as Director James said, the same numbers we have today. So to clarify that, I'll state it again, and I don't recall any other statement to the effect of it's shared for any other federal agency.
The statement was made, sir.
Well, I don't recall, so to clarify that, whoever made it, because I know I didn't, Port of entry personnel, it's not a task force, and none of us at the table have any indication of any other DHS entity that, or federal entity that doesn't work here already, maintaining a presence here.
Okay, thank you. We'll quote you on that.
So I'd like to echo the sentiments of many that we're very grateful that you're here. You all have a lot of important work to do, and that you would take time out to travel consistently to come to us is no small thing. It's very important. So thank you for being here. Officer James in particular spoke a lot about the partnership between the community and CBP, and I agree that that's really important. I think in order for things to move along here, there needs to be an acknowledgement of the fact that GSA procured this lease without consulting the community in any way. That's what people are really upset about. I mean, there are these related fears about DHS and the related fears about overreach of law enforcement. None of you are representing GSA, so in a sense, none of you can apologize on behalf of GSA. But the wrong was committed here, and people are really upset about that wrong, and it has really injured the relationship between the community and Customs and Border Patrol. Even though the more rational among us understand that Mr. Strongberg here had nothing to do with procuring that particular lease, and we don't have nothing against him personally. It's like people are really angry about the way this decision was made without any transparency, without any opportunity for public input. Could you speak to that for a moment, please?
It's difficult for me to speak on GSA's behalf. GSA really needs to do that.
Yep.
There will be more opportunities for town halls where we'll make them very public in advance, and you'll have the opportunity where we'll invite GSA, and they can come in and speak to the issue. I think that's the best I can put on the table.
Forward. I think this is a step in the right direction, and that you're engaging the community in this way, and on specific tactical matters of how is this building going to be constructed, how is it going to look,
right. How
are the officers expected to conduct themselves. That's amazing, and you guys need to keep doing that, because that is what's going to build your relationship with the community. That's what you guys have left. But understand that the relationship is injured. It's been severely injured. Traumatized.
And so that's why it's important for us to keep working on it.
Yeah.
I think, maybe you mentioned it, but I think Mr. Alvarez had said that, we want to have additional town halls,
Good.
focusing on different areas, we will invite GSA and let them stand and answer the question. I don't, there's just, it would be assumptions on my end, and I'm not privy to all of the ins and outs of what actually occurred. So,
Again, but moving forward, you're going to try to build this relationship again because it's broken.
absolutely,
This is a broken relationship.
absolutely.
I have a comment related to, what you just said. What we didn't do well, CBP, at the last town hall, and I think maybe a conversation after the meeting or even reading in the articles. So one of the questions was understanding that GSA was here to describe the process, and again, I have to defer to the GSA on that. But the question that came to us, so does it concern you that the town is upset? Right? Does that concern you? Does that resonate with you? The answer is yes. Right? And if we didn't answer that like that at the meeting, well, then we're answering it now. Of course, it concerns us.
You wouldn't be here otherwise.
The nature of our relationship, that if it was impacted in any way, it concerns us. What we can do about it is what we're here, talking about. And so that's just one thing to clarify there, I guess, is, why are we here? Why are we talking to you? Is it this kind of outreach? Is it a more focused outreach with business than it is with public? To the degree that we can, we're trying to work on that. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
I very much appreciate you guys being here. I think one of the second sentences that was stated is that you wanted to just be able to communicate with one another. Two opposing sides just wanted to see each other's point of view. I would like Risha believe that there is definitely an injured relationship, and I came here with one thing and one thing only on my mind. I was hoping that there would be that dialogue between those of us who are scared, afraid of the changes, whether they be military or whatever the changes are, or whether it was just a hurt that so much damage was done to our community, and we just wanted to talk to the person who was responsible for making the decision, or who we elected to be responsible to say that this was necessary. We just wanted to have that dialogue, like if you were a teacher and you had students, one of them hurt the other person's feelings, you want them to talk about it. Who do we talk to say, we're hurt, we just want to talk? Why do you feel that our hurt is necessary? GSA, you try to put your finger on who to talk to, it's gone. You try to put anywhere, it's gone, they're up there. Who do we talk to? We just want to have the dialogue that you're talking about, because we're hurting. And we cannot grow. If we do talk to somebody, we can't, You're basically relying on Daddy Warbucks for your job. We are in a way too. I just hope that you can see that it's as important for you guys to talk to them as it is for us, because our relationship is damaged. It's just a comment, nothing.
What? Yes, sir.
I'm Dennis Hazelton. I was port director here for 18 years for Customs, which became CBP. Several responses. One is, people here don't seem to understand it's CBP we're talking about. They keep talking about DHS. Well, yeah, DHS is up there in the sky. It's above CBP. But we're talking about CBP, and everybody keeps talking about the ogre DHS. Secondly, at least 3 people in this town in the public writings use the opinions jackbooted. Somebody look up the term jackbooted. Jack boots are boots that go up over the thigh, they're smooth leather, and they're for cavalry type people. They have never, in my 41 years of customs, been worn by a customs officer. And yet, it keeps coming out, because it evokes an image that is simply not true. Thirdly, as far as the old facility that was proposed by the port of Friday Harbor, it was beautiful. It was a good location. I was a strong proponent. I saw the plans. I worked on the plans. But the port wanted customs to pay for the facility and pay for rent too. And when this question came up at the last meeting, it was explained by GSA that that is strictly forbidden by law. It's like going onto somebody's private property and say, hey, we're going to build a federal building on your property, and then you can rent it to whoever you want. That's not good stewardship of the federal dollar. Second, well, many ways along that. What I want from you guys up there is an absolute guarantee. At least 4 times when I was down clearing the ferry, a seagull pooped on me. Now, I want to guarantee that'll never happen again. And not only that, but people laughed when it happened. You know, will there ever be an instance where somebody down at the port getting cleared by the ferry gets arrested? Oh my God, that could be. Is it in the public view? Yeah, it's in the public. Oh my God! So they call for backup and say, hey, Sheriff's Office, can you help us out down here? Gosh, our one deputy on duty is up at Roche Harbor. Ooh. Now you take these 7 officers that they have here. 7 times 8 is 56 hours of work on regular time they work. Golly, 7 times 8 is the number of days in the week they supply that port. Many times I had people get mad at me because, why weren't you at the airport? Why weren't you down on the dock? Why are you sitting here in the office? Well, it's because I had to man the office, and I had somebody at the airport, or I had somebody at Roche Harbor. You guys have to give these guys a little leeway that they have other things to do than sit in the office and wait for you to walk in.
We need to move.
It's related to this discussion because you guys are mistypifying what these guys are about.
No one
Four of these guys.
Okay, guys, please stop. We've got 9 minutes.
people-
There's people that have questions.
Four of these 7 people live in this town. They live here, they work here, they're neighbors, their kids go to school here. And they have been hijacked into being ogres, and it's not true.
Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am. We have 9 minutes, so.
Okay, I was just wondering if you guys have any kind of psychological screening, this is kind of taking it back a little bit, but psychological screening that your officers go through just to make sure everybody's like, you know, not an obvious sociopath.
I think that was a question that.
Yes, that question was addressed during our last meeting, and Mr. Alvarez explained that there are hiring standards within the agency, and those standards, there are hiring standards within the agency, and the officers must meet medical standard, and medical standards, and also they go through a series of evaluations, interviews and everything else. They check our credit history and everything else. So there is a protocol for that includes a background investigation. And the background investigation also doesn't end when you do the initial hiring, right? It's every 5 years as well.
It's only every 5 years?
Yes, ma'am.
Only, okay.
And updated background.
5 years.
Yeah, updated,
Yes.
but I mean like, checking in maybe on a yearly basis would be better.
Well, those are
don't
our
mean to,
standards at the moment.
Suggest it, but.
Yes.
Okay, the rest of that row, are there any questions? Yes, sir?
I'm Andy Savage. I'd like to address sustainability. And if you want to get in tight with our community and look good, there's something you can do. You can cover the roof with solar collectors. You can cover the sheriff's roof with solar collectors. You can sell us the energy at half price. You guys are huge. You can float some cash around. $15,000 a month rent. 2 months rent on your roof, 2 months rent on the sheriff's roof, and we can roll. We can roll with that.
Okay, thank you, sir. Yes, sir?
I'm Norris Palmer, and I've been a recreational boater for 8 or 9 years, and I probably crossed that border more than anybody in this room, and I want to tell you that it works. You guys have done a great job of making it work. The I-68s work. I've never seen any problems with any officers, and probably the 30 or 40 times I've crossed this thing, and I want to tell you guys you're doing a darn good job, and I'm double emphasizing that you guys aren't Homeland Security, you're Border Patrol, you're Customs, I think you could do a better job of telling the public what it is you're doing as far as keeping the illegal vegetables. You're not human trafficking, you're saving half of Washington State's apples from things coming in, and I don't think a lot of people understand that. You're not in human trafficking. You're stopping things for coming into this country that shouldn't be here, and there's a lot of you officers on the line right now and all over this country of ours that are doing the job and doing it right. And if there's just one little guy that didn't do it right, you guys fix it. You don't let it go. And it's an important thing you're doing. And I'm going to go as far as to say that if you guys weren't here and we got rid of all the Homeland Security and all of these protectors of our borders, that the first time that some word, and I'm going to use the word terrorist, happened in this community, they would be screaming, "Why weren't you here?" And I thank you.
Thank you, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Robin Blair. Two things regarding the moving looped sign, lit sign, like they have at the Anacortes Ferry Terminal that somebody mentioned putting up. I believe that would violate the town sign ordinance.
I meant internally within the structure itself. It's a
I
kiosk
think if
that
it's in the
says
window, it would, I could be wrong. I think
facing
it's
in,
the window.
facing in, like
Okay.
a television monitor facing
The
in.
other thing is a question, did Rick Larson contact any of you? We have a two-star general up here, and I have a question of Rick Larson.
Have any of you heard from the question?
I'm Rick Larson's, Congressman Larson's community liaison, so if I have a specific question, I can talk to you afterwards. It was in the paper, the letter the congressman wrote, contacting GSA, CBP.
Also, it's really pretty hard to believe that there's a little handful of people that are like, need a huge space. It's a really big space. It's huge. It was too big
Okay,
for the rooms.
thank you. Are there any other questions in the corner? With that, I know we have 4 minutes. Would you like to make any closing statements?
I thank you. I know there is good dialogue. We're going to agree on some things, and we're not going to agree on some other things. I do thank you for giving us your very candid and maybe some very controlled comments, and that is appreciated. That's just how we move forward. We've got a lot of work to do on our end, and your comments are very, all your comments are very valid, but I understand some people are hurt, and how do we start moving forward on making that better? Can we? Probably not by tomorrow, no, but we can little by little, hopefully get back to that relationship where we can, I hope at some point, put this behind us. I think that we can. Many of you are saying it's going to take a while, but you have our dedicated promise that we're going to look at all of what was said today. We will identify those things that we can modify. Some things we can't. So I kind of want to manage some expectations, but we're going to try. We will try. I thank you for taking your time again. This is what we do, and we are being paid today. Many of you took time off of your jobs and away from your families, so thank you. That means a lot to us.
Great. And I wanted to thank you all for your patience in the process, and I hope it's safe for me to say that we anticipate to have additional public hearings with CBP in the future. So
Notice. Would be great if we had time to make notice to be here.
Absolutely.
I had to cancel half of the whole
Absolutely. As I tried to explain, our intent of the meeting was to meet with the businesses. I understand that the community has a different view on that. So, and again, I think we might have been on different, looking at this from different angles.
We just haven't been given enough time.
And I think, again, to her point, the process was, okay, we had a general public meeting. We're going to talk to businesses now. I think the next approach would be a broader public meeting again.
At a time of day when people can actually make it with enough notice to be there, so we can all ask questions and get it all aired, and then feel better about moving forward and feeling that relationship will be great. So some more notice and a time that is more considerable for people to make, please, I ask for that.
Lunch hour is nice. It's better. Should be at 12.
All right. Well, thank you very much, everyone. And thank you all.